Hello, everyone. If you're watching this, that means you are interested in retaking the geography compare and contrast short answer response. So what I'd like you to do is make sure that if you've already took this quiz before, that you read the comments I left you so that you don't make the same mistakes. So if you need to pause the video right now, feel free to do so and go look for your response to the geography C&C. If you haven't taken it yet, then just watch the video, and the retake is due tonight at 11:59 p.m. So, as a reminder, what was this quiz about? It was number one, identify and explain a difference in geography of Egypt and Mesopotamia. What is geography? Geography is physical features like rivers, mountains, etc. So that's what you're supposed to talk about. You're supposed to talk about the difference between Egyptian rivers and the Mesopotamian rivers. Then number two, you identify and explain a difference in the political or religious culture of Egypt and Mesopotamia. When I say political, I meant the government structure, like how many kings the kingdom had, or the religious culture would be like what were their gods like and their afterlife like. Lastly, number three was to explain how the difference you identified in number two was explained by differences in geography, such as rivers. So that's what you were supposed to do. Now, if you don't get it, that's what this video is for. So, just as a reminder, the evidence for number one is that the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in Mesopotamia had frequent, unpredictable, terrifying floods. This caused Mesopotamians to rely on priests and eventually their kings to help build walls to hold back the floodwaters. So, it was a very chaotic situation in Mesopotamia. They also lacked natural barriers such as mountains. So, it was a flat land, which meant that people could easily invade, which led Mesopotamia to have more of a military focus. This is different than Egypt. Unlike the Mesopotamian rivers, the Egyptian rivers' floods were very predictable. It happened the same time every year, which made it very easy for Egyptians to plan for and control the floods. The Nile River was the lifeline of Egypt. It was super important. But the desert helped actually, because the desert limited where people could settle, and it also protected Egypt from invasion. So Mesopotamia was easier to invade, whereas Egypt was in a desert, so no one wanted to invade there. Please know that this is Mesopotamia. Notice how it has both two rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates, and this is Egypt, who has only the Nile River. And each of these civilizations interacted with each other, yet differences in geography set them on different paths. Because Mesopotamia's rivers were more unpredictable, their culture is going to be a little bit more violent. Whereas in Egypt, their river was more gentle. Therefore, their culture is going to reflect that gentleness, okay? So, the whole idea of this, the main takeaway, is that the environment you are raised in will affect the way you view the world and your outlook on life. So let's relate it to modern day. If you were raised in a violent, unsafe environment, that might lead you to think the whole world is a violent place. So some people might ask, why is there more crime in poorer communities, right? Think about that. Why is there more crime in poorer communities? And part of the reason why is that when there are fewer resources to go around, people may fight to get those resources. So that's very similar to in Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia did not have many resources, right? Like they were, water and food were scarce. And so they had to fight each other in their city-states to get those resources. Similar thing to crime in poor communities. They sometimes fight or do what they need to do to get those resources. Think about this. How would a person born rich view the world versus someone born poor? They will see the world differently, y'all. So a poor person is going to have to hustle to survive. They're going to have to do whatever it takes. If that means stealing or something like that, they will do whatever it takes, which means they will believe the world is cruel because they can't afford to mess up, right? If they make a mistake, they could lose their job, and that means they have no food to eat. Whereas if you are a rich person, you can lean on your rich family and your money resources for support. Let's say you fail a huge, you fail your classes in college. Your parents can pay for you to take another year, or they could pay for you to get a tutor. And so for rich people, they see the world as a place where dreams can come true because they have the resources to give themselves a good life. Whereas a poor person does not see the world that way. right? The world is difficult for them, and so they're going to act and behave in a way to survive. So the key takeaway for this lesson, which will help you do well on your quiz you're about to take, is that Egypt's beneficial geography, its calm river, caused its political structure to be more unified and its religious beliefs to be more positive. Whereas Mesopotamia's difficult geography, those two wild rivers, caused its political structure to be more divided and competitive, how those city-states were always fighting, and its religious beliefs to be way darker. Okay, it's not going to be positive, it's going to be sad. So let's look at the retake Google form now. I want you to take a look at what it looks like. It looks very similar. This time though, just make sure you're at your period. I also collecting your email address. I've included the evidence in the form itself. So all you need to do is read through the slides again and then just write. Like, a difference in geography of Egypt is that Egypt had the Nile River, which was more predictable, right? Whereas the Tigris and Euphrates was, and explain more in 3 sentences. Then for number 2, you have an option. You can give evidence of differences in government, or you can give evidence in differences in religion between Mesopotamia and Egypt. And you would type that right here. So let me go over that real quick. So the big differences, I'm not going to go over the whole slide, is that Mesopotamia had separate city-states, about 12, and these city-states were constantly fighting for resources, right? They couldn't get along. The rivers caused them to divide. Whereas in Egypt, they were united under one river. You know, they all were in the same river area, and they were united under one king, the Pharaoh. And they all listened to the Pharaoh. So they were more united. Whereas in the religious sense, the Mesopotamian religions thought their gods were violent, right? If their rivers are constantly flooding, you know, in a way that's unpredictable, they're going to assume that it's a sign from the gods that the gods hate them in a way. And so in the Mesopotamians' afterlife, they actually believed it was miserable. They believed that once you die, you were in complete darkness and you would just eat mud, like you were basically buried underground. Whereas in Egypt, gods and goddesses would reward someone with a wonderful afterlife as long as they were a good person. And if they passed the test, they could live forever in heaven in this happy field of food. So you can see the difference where in Egypt, their religion has a happy afterlife, whereas Mesopotamian is more focused on this dark, literally dirt-filled underworld. Okay? And that's what you would put here. For number 3, I gave you sentence starters. So here's what you could put. The reason for the differences stated above is due to geography. Mesopotamia had 2 rivers which were very violent and unpredictable, which caused them to think the whole world was violent and unpredictable. That's why Mesopotamian government or religion was, and explain what their religion or government was like. In contrast, Egypt had a river that was very predictable and, safe, which caused them to think, I'm not going to do it all because it's clear at this point where I'm going, okay? So if you didn't get all that, feel free to watch this video again. Please make sure you answer questions 1, 2, and 3, click submit, and then Miss Yokoyama will grade it and put it in the grade book, okay? You can get up to an 80%. Good luck!